Hello, everybody, and welcome to Will's Wild World of Wrestling. We're coming at you tonight with the maiden voyage, our first true video on YouTube of the Will's Wild World of Wrestling show. This thing wasn't supposed to happen for about 2 weeks. Our set is currently under construction right now, but there was just too much excitement. There was too much enthusiasm about this week. This is All Out weekend. This is Starrcast weekend, Chicago, Illinois. And with that said, I just kind of want to go ahead and jump right in. Maiden voyage. Like I said, we're going to head to Chicago for Starrcast. We're going to be providing updates on all things Starrcast weekend, all things All Out weekend. Of course, Sunday we're going to head on over to Chicago Heights and go to Warrior Wrestling 6. That's going to be, as I've said, a stacked card. As most of you know, it is a stacked card, and so we're really excited about this weekend. So we want to go ahead and kick things off here, give you a few little ideas, kind of what I was thinking. Today, Adam Cole was on Busted Open Radio. Made some interesting comments. It's definitely worth a listen if you want to go pull it up on iTunes. It's a very good podcast that just got started here recently. Billy Ray, Mark Henry, and Dave LaGreca. But anyway, Adam Cole's on there today and basically saying that NXT going to the USA Network was more of a byproduct of the hard work that's been put in over the last few years by the athletes and the behind-the-scenes personnel at NXT. And I really couldn't disagree or agree with those statements. But what I can say is I believe that NXT wants to do their own thing, and I think AEW wants to do their own thing. And the reality is the people that want a wrestling war is us fans, because if you go back and you really think about one of the last fond memories of the boom era of wrestling and the Attitude Era and all that stuff was the big Monday Night War. And everyone's been infatuated with it and thought that it could never happen again. And now with AEW, with all the money that they have behind that company and getting a big TV network deal like TNT, it's all of a sudden everybody's like, it's going to be a war. It's going to be a war. And really, I guess maybe Cody, tongue-in-cheek at Double or Nothing, took the sledgehammer to the throne like he was taking down the Triple H throne. I think that was a tongue-in-cheek thing, and I think you're going to see things like that. But in reality, I think AEW is probably more focused on AEW, and NXT is probably more focused on NXT, and I think the winners are going to be the fans. Ultimately, I just think that NXT... we've not seen them have a 2-hour format yet. We do know that they've got great people behind the scenes, and the former Ring of Honor Booker Gabe Sapolsky working on creative. So we know NXT can pump out quality storylines. We know what the wrestling is like there. AEW, a little bit more of an uncertain. But with a guy like Chris Jericho, with guys like Jim Ross, I think that they'll figure it out. And I think the winners are going to be the fans. That's kind of my take on that. Big news today, AEW makes it official. Tony Schiavone is on board. Now that's a great hire. Tony Schiavone is an extremely hard worker. The guy has like 3 jobs at all times. Works his tail off for Conrad. If anybody was at Starrcast 2 in Vegas, he was the all-star of the production crew for Starrcast 2 in Vegas. He is a guy that understands how to produce TV, and obviously I think he'll go right into the booth. And I'm going to make the prediction that he will be the 3rd person in the booth with Excalibur and Jim Ross this weekend at All Out. That's I've heard it's rumbling around, but that was the first thing I thought of when they said Tony Schiavone to AEW. I think it's a great fit. I think it's a great hire, and you're getting a hard worker. The other third thing that I thought was really interesting today, didn't really get a lot of publicity, I don't think, but But WWE announced Stone Cold Steve Austin, the toughest SOB in the WWE history, was going to be coming to the next WWE show at Madison Square Garden. I thought that's really interesting because, WWE hasn't really opened that checkbook up for Steve and gave him a lot of bookings. And we saw him just a few months ago at the WWE reunion show on Monday Night Raw, and now just a little over a month later, they announced he's going to be at the MSG show. I think it's really interesting. I think it's Vince McMahon. This is totally my opinion. This is, and that's what you're going to get on this channel. You're going to get a lot of my thoughts and my opinions, and I honestly do believe that part of the reason why you want to have Stone Cold come to MSG, part of the reason why you want to get Stone Cold back under your cupboard a little bit is because Steve Austin, he's just like everybody else in the wrestling business. If you put enough zeros behind a check, he's liable to show up on your TV. And I don't doubt one bit that Tony Khan couldn't put enough zeros on the back of that check to get a Steve Austin appearance or even a Steve Austin signing. As a matter of fact, I was dreaming that he would be the third guy in the booth, because if you go back and look at the history of wrestling, you look at guys like Terry Funk, Paul Heyman when he was a commentator. And then you go look at the Bobby Heenans. Guys that were wrestlers in the business or managers in the business that made a great move over into wrestling. Jesse Ventura. These are all elite color analysts in the history of our business, and I really think Stone Cold Steve Austin would be a tailor-made for that. And if I would have been Tony Khan, I believe I would have pulled out some zeros on a check and seen if I could make it happen. Nonetheless, though, they do get Shivani, but I do think that Stone Cold being back on MSG, the next show for WWE, I think that's kind of a sign of WWE wanting to make sure they keep him kind of on their side of the fence, so to speak, because he is a guy that can certainly move the needle. Of course, over the weekend we heard, Mox is out, Pac is in. I do think that hurts the card a little bit for AEW's All Out. It was the second biggest match on the card, second biggest match on the card. You're going to put Pac in there, but people aren't invested, and that's something AEW's going to have to really understand, because there's no bigger cheerleader or no bigger fan of wanting to see them succeed than I am. That's for sure. I was at Double or Nothing in Vegas, thoroughly enjoyed the show, and I have no doubt that this will be a great show, but, sometimes it is a little bit more about than just about going out and putting on the best matches you can. I think from a fan standpoint, there does need to be interest in the storyline. There needs to be interest in that character, and the fact that we've not got any investment at all into it. I think it's going into it pretty cold, and I don't think it's very much of a surprise who we think will win. I can't imagine that Omega doesn't go over. So I just don't think that, one, it's a cold situation. It's one that nobody's really invested into the character of Pac on AEW, and I just don't see any scenario in which he goes over Omega. Where before with Moxley and Omega, in the back of my mind, I thought this was going to be a coming out party for Omega, but I also thought that Moxley would lose, but not really lose anything by losing. That was just sort of where I was feeling the match would end up going. But there was certainly a large degree of uncertainty as far as how that finish was going to happen, and really who would end up going over. So, those are some things that have stuck out for me over the last few days. And then, I guess the last thing, really to put a bow on everything, and we're going to try to do these shows, 25 and 30 minutes normally. How far are we in on this one?
10
minutes in on this one. But really, I don't have a whole lot more other than there's one thing that's sort of been a little bit of an interesting thing that's sort of been going on over the last 2 weeks. And I'm a big old school wrestling fan. When I grew up, the first wrestling I ever watched was Jerry Lawler in Memphis. I got that on local TV here. And then I guess, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, we had cable TV and started watching Ric Flair. This would have been around 1985 on NWA, on TBS. And so I have an old school background, and I'm a huge fan of Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, things like that. But something that's really interesting that's going on right now is this, I guess it's sort of like a little Twitter war with Jim Cornette and Jordan Grace. And I guess Austin Aries jumped in the fray, and everybody sort of had a comment on it. Like, I really think that wrestlers like Joey Ryan and them probably don't get credit for being the historians of the sport that they really are, and B, I really don't think that they are opposed to old school storytelling in their wrestling. I think what it really boils down to is in any time in this business, what it's really boiled down to is whether you can get over. If you go back and look in the mid '90s, Vince McMahon was laying people off. Didn't know if he was going to even be able to keep his business going. WCW couldn't draw flies, and fortunately, ECW came along, and everybody knows the Attitude Era happened, and it popped all the business, and the money was flowing like crazy. But the business was dying. It was dying because WWE was more of a cartoonish character type of a show that was catering just to kids, and WCW, they were a Southern wrestling company. And really just didn't appeal to a large enough mass to really make any money, and they were bleeding money, and so the point I'm trying to get to is after the Attitude Era, the business sort of really died down, and there wasn't a whole lot of territories on the independent scene that was really drawing 750 and 1,000 people consistently. Then all of a sudden, 3 or 4 years ago, New Japan, Cody left WWE. The Bucks, they created their phenomenon with their Being the Elite on YouTube, their series. And, some of these guys started really getting over, and that's the whole point is it's all about drawing money. It's all about drawing money. If you go back and listen to Jerry Lawler talk about, they did the loop, where they'd go from Memphis, and then they'd do Louisville, and then Indiana, and, the whole little loop they did, and they always ended back up Monday night to Mid-South Coliseum, and it was a sold-out joint, 8,000-10,000 people there every Monday. They were hanging from the rafters, as they'd say, and they were. And if you go and you look in the Carolinas, when it was, Flair and Harley Race, and they were hanging from the rafters. If you want to be able to stay alive, you've got to make money. And these wrestlers have been able to get over. They've been able to draw money. They've been able to put butts in seats. And ultimately, that's what this whole business is about. So whether you're on the old school side of things with JC or the performance art side of it, I kind of feel like I'm sort of in the middle and on both sides, splitting it down the middle and on both sides both, because I honestly don't think that the two sides are as different as they think. I think what it really boils down to is people like Jordan Grace and Joey Ryan, they support their friends, people that have been nice to them. And I think ultimately they're nice people. They're quality human beings. And I do mean that. I do believe that they are not just great entertainers, but they're good people, and they support their friends. And some of the stuff that JC's done, the name calling and this, that, and the other. I mean, I'm a huge Cornette fan, but it has bothered me a bit because I'm a huge Jordan Grace fan, and I think she's one of the 15 or 20 best workers, male or female, in this business. I mean, I think that much of her work. If you get on YouTube and look at some of her matches that she's had on the Indies, you'll be hard pressed to disagree. So I think that's an interesting thing that we'll probably continue to dive into. I just kind of wanted to float around here tonight. I wanted to come on here because we were just excited about Starrcast. We were excited about the launch of this network. And, even though we don't have our studio set up, nothing's in place yet, we really just want to go ahead and get some content out here. Let everybody know, hey, this weekend, Chicago, Illinois, Starrcast 3 from Schaumburg. It's going to be a really, really good time. And if you can't be in Chicago, you can't order it on the Fight Network, hit the subscribe button down below. We're going to provide some updates. I went to Starrcast 2 in Vegas back in, was it May, I think. And from a wrestling fan experience, it was top notch, and it totally over-delivered. So this may be the last Starrcast. Conrad hasn't said whether there'll be a fourth one or not. So if it is, the biggest wrestling convention in the world will go out with a bang. I don't think it'll be the last one, but like I said, I definitely think Conrad will over-deliver on this thing. I know he lost the Moxley panel. I think is going to be off. Haven't got a confirmation on that yet, but I kind of feel like that one will be off. I'm going to post a picture of the schedule. I'll get that up in the morning. That'll give you basically a list of all the stage shows. Most of you's probably already seen it. I mean, it's totally on your radar. But I'm going to post it anyway. It's the schedule of all the stage shows that are going to be on Fight TV. So you can order it on there for $39.99, I think. And if you order it, I think they were giving away like the first and second Starrcast too. I'm not sure if they're still doing that or not. But anyway, that being said, like I said, we will put that up. I'll post it. Like I said, we'll get some more updates this weekend as to everything that's happening while we're in Chicago for All Out Weekend and Warrior Wrestling 6. And I think that just about covers it. Let's see. We've got, I think I've got everything in there that we want to get tonight. So like I said, just like the Facebook page, Will's Wild World of Wrestling. We're on Twitter, Will's Wild World of Wrestling, Instagram for some cool pictures. Over the next, 30 to 40 days, I'm going to try to get some cool wrestling photos up from some of the events that we've been to over the last year or so. So it's all kind of a work in progress, so hang in there with us. But a lot of cool stuff and a lot of cool information and just fun interaction with one wrestling fan to another. So with that said, you guys have a great evening, and I'm out of here.